Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer!
All
Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things.
All right. Welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here.
Gabe, Gaitonde. Ooh.
And we are here to give our honest review on the film Sardar Udham. Gabe, why don't you give us a quick synopsis on what this film's about?
So basically, it's about a freedom fighter who, we've catch the film. I love the way it's filmed because at the beginning of the story, they show you the assassination he commits right off the bat, right? So they're already giving us the end of the story. And then they go back in the past to find out why he committed this assassination, why he killed this former military official and politician. He's considered a terrorist in England, but we find out that one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter because what he did was go avenge the death of this massacre of where his friends and hundreds of people were killed. They give us the story of this guy's journey of trying several times actually to get in, and he finally gets in, and the years that was built in order for him to accomplish this goal of killing this guy. And he did it not for vengeance, because at first we thought it was just for vengeance, but they show how he could have killed this guy, but he meant to do it as a political statement to spark the movement of other people in India rising up and finally getting from under the English empire. They show the massacre and then finally show his death at the end. But it's basically that tale of this guy who, in England at the time was considered a terrorist, right? But we find out that he's what he is really a freedom fighter, and he, along with others, were the ones that sparked, because this incident sparked the upheaval, the protest, basically, that led to the eventual liberation of India.
And this is a film that I'm going to tell you right now, Gabe and I have been busy with lots of different things, and movie reviews has taken a very much of a backseat, like it has the last 6 months or so, just because it takes a lot of time. Right. But it's because Boring Review Nation has asked and pleaded and not really begged, in the comment section for us to review this. And that's what really inspired us to check out this film. I remember liking the trailer, but we're going to talk about our thoughts about this film. Right. And let us know as we do what your thoughts are in the comment section. Please don't forget to like and subscribe as we get into our conversations, because there's lots to say about this movie. There's lots to say about the context that this historically based film was based off of, the history behind it, and the true life people about it. And I just want to start off real quick with saying this. I'm not going to try to be secretive whatsoever. This was an amazing film. I enjoyed watching it very, very much. There was parts that I did not like watching at all because it was so tough to watch. Right. But this was an amazing film. There's a difference. There's flicks out there. There's sit down, eat some popcorn. There's movies. And then there's films. And the films are the ones that go on to win the awards, but it's not about the awards. The films are the ones that make you realize the art in movies, that make you realize more about life than you thought there was. And before anyone mentioned in the comment section, I know this was one of the 14 going towards the best foreign film from India to the Oscars. It was not selected in that top 14. And there was some backlash about it because it really is that good of a film where it should have been considered. But what are your initial thoughts?
Here's the thing. This film, I'm shocked. I want to know what other films got sent, because I think this film is amazing. With that being said, I could see why some people would shy away from it because of the politics behind it, right? Yeah. The nature of the story. We cannot be afraid of our history, guys, because the old adage is those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. You know what I'm saying? So if it happened, it happened. Bottom line, if it happened, it happened. And what are we going to do? Just try to whitewash it, change history? And I mean, I always say something to myself, well, let's stay safe. No, that's not who I am. I say what I feel. I say what's in my heart. So I feel like this movie was kept out for no other reason than because of the controversial nature of the topic. But are you telling me that we're too, as a society and as a film community, we're so sensible to the fact of, well, no, we got to stay away from this because this may, this may offend someone's sensibilities or whatnot. Is that why? Because this thing was true art. This thing was an unbelievable film. Absolutely. And so what if it's of a controversial nature? My biggest thing about this film, you're right, Nick. It was the tough watch. There's about 30 or 40 minutes that should have been cut out to me.
No, not
yes. It was so hard to watch him, and we're gonna get it's just full spoilers, but that really that back and forth from the field, finding the wound. Oh my gosh, bro, that was a gut punch to me, man. That is just a tough thing to watch, man. And I just think that part of that movie right there bothered me, having them go back and forth, man, seeing it for it was like 20, 30 minutes, wasn't it, bro?
Needed. It was, I disagree with there, because for this film, because you gotta look, I look at the movie as a movie itself. I don't look at it as strictly a history lesson, even though it's teaching us about what happened in history. And I'm sure those who made it try to make it as accurate as possible. But that is the story. That is part of the story. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre is what helped inspire Bharat Singh, which we love that movie. We love that story. This helped inspire Sardar Udham. It helped inspire a lot. A lot of experts have said that it was the beginning of the end for the UK's establishment in India. It was beginning of Indian citizens, those ones that were trying to, support those who rule them, so to speak. No, we lost faith in you. It reminded me so much of Desmond Doss in Hacksaw Ridge, where he's like, I got to get one more. And it always brings me to tears every time I watch that scene. I've watched the movie 4 or 5 times. It reminded me of that. Maybe the gore, in some people's opinion, was not needed. I can get that, I can get behind that. But you needed that struggle, because look at what, it wasn't like he went there. It would have been shocking enough to go to that scene after the aftermath, to see all those bodies and just be like, oh my gosh, what have these people done? That would have been bad enough. That would have been message enough. But this guy he woke up in the middle of the night. He spent all night, and it started with him looking for his friend. I think it was a girl that he liked. I don't think it was his sister. He called her sister. I think it was a girl that he liked, or a friend of his. It started with him trying to find her, but he kept going back and back and back because of the reverberations of the decision that Dyer made in that shooting. And with those men, it paid a huge toll. You're talking about a peaceful protest about 2 of their leaders being taken under arrest, and they're sitting there peacefully. No, we're not going to go. No, we're not going to go. You had O'Dwyer telling Dyer, I need you to take care of this. I need you to send a message. He said he didn't want the other colonel because he's hesitant or whatever. And I'm going to get to the ride and all that kind of stuff, the technical aspects of the film in a little bit. But you needed that scene. There was other scenes. There was the torture scene, for crying out loud, which was tough to watch. And I've seen some torture. One of the toughest torture scenes I've seen was from Casino Royale, where they open up the thing and they're hitting a guy underneath, right? That was tough to watch. But it shows the commitment of Sardar Udham. And what he say after he did the assassination of Dwyer, he put, it's done. It's done. I don't care what you do to me. It's done. I'm not done. I'm not going to try to escape. I'm not resisting arrest. It's done. I've done my job as a freedom fighter, is what he called himself. And he went through so much torture to the point where the guy's in charge of ordering the torture, he's on his side, and he's like, this guy's committed to the cause, for crying out loud. He's like, you got to understand. And he even tells him, I know you're just doing your job. I mean, those scenes are tough to watch, and I wouldn't have my kids watch it, not at their age right now. I wouldn't have my wife watch it because she's not into that kind of stuff. But you needed to have that scene, those scenes. I want to get to the film, because I don't want to focus too much on this topic just yet. I want to get to the film real quick, because this film, the reason why it's being called a masterpiece, the reason why it's being called the year's best, which it deserves those kind of accolades, is because this was a film in whole. It had an amazing story based on truth, but we've seen a lot of based on true stories go very awry and go very Hollywood, so to speak. Right. So you had the story there. You had the acting. Vicky Kaushal, we saw him in Uri. We see him in other films, URI, whatever you want to call that. And he was good in that. He puts on, probably, in my opinion, I don't want to be too hyperbolic here. I don't want to be too into the moment, but he gives probably the best performance of the year of anyone in film this year. He was so committed as that character. He was committed physically, because we saw different physicality in URI. He had to have dropped like 20 pounds, and he wasn't chubby or fat before. He lost a lot of muscle. He transformed into the younger Sardar Udham, into the older, current, present-day one. He was so committed to that role. the focus on, that's what I always see with great acting is in the eyes. That focus where you don't see Vicky Kaushal, you see someone who's focused in that role. He gave me, in my opinion, such an inspiring performance in this role that I love seeing great performances. I love seeing guys go in there and get it. And all the accolades for him are deservedly so. This guy guaranteed is going to win some awards. Maybe not the Academy. He should, but in India for sure. His performance was phenomenal.
Bro, I'm gonna take it one step farther. I'm gonna take it one step further. This was an Oscar-worthy performance. The way he conveyed pain with his eyes, the way he conveyed, desperate, the desperate nature, that silent pain, that protest, right? When he went on the hunger strike, like everything he did was so masterful. And there was one scene to me that it just killed me because they drew it out, and I guess that's what the point was. But when he's gonna get hanged, and we'll give a quick synopsis of everything in a minute because we're all over the place. But Nick, I think the greatest shot of this film, the symbolism behind it, but the fact that they drew it out, I think they did it to make you uncomfortable, is when he is finally going to be hanged, right? At the end. They draw that out way too long. It's like a long drawn out walk. They're going back and forth for cut scenes or whatever. They put him there and then they hang him. And then immediately you see him running in a field, right? After he's hung. And he's running and his exuberance and he's happy. And to me, it reminded me of a line that was probably one of the most powerful lines in another Oscar-worthy film that I think won some awards, Black Panther, when Michael B. Jordan says, our ancestors jumped from the boats on the way here from Africa because they knew that dying at sea was better than living in slavery, living under subjugation. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he was finally free. Because to your point, once he committed the assassination, he did what he had to do. He knew his life ended that moment, and now he's finally free. Death actually gave him freedom, so to speak. And I think that was such a great message and such a great, powerful scene there. But they drove out those specific two scenes to me so long that they stayed with me, bro. And man, you're right. This guy did an unbelievable job. I think it's an Oscar-worthy performance. I cannot believe. I want to see what other 14 films actually got nominated to get in, because I don't know how this didn't. I honestly don't.
There's so many things about this film that it would probably take us 4 hours for us to talk about, to where at the end of that, I would feel like, okay, I think I got all my thoughts out. Yeah. We're not going to do that because, algorithm and whatnot. But there's so many things I want to talk about. One thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is the film. We've only seen about 50 or 60 Indian films. I get that. But I feel like whenever there is an English character portrayed, I feel like the acting, the person behind that, the actor, does not give a performance whatsoever. Right. I felt like all the performances were top notch. Right. The guy who, and I want to find his name right here, who played Michael O'Dwyer, he was Sean Scott. Gave a great performance because you hated this guy. This guy was so smug. He would never, ever admit that whatever he did at that massacre, allowing that to happen, was anything wrong with it. And the conversations that Sardar had with him when he was infiltrating, right? He was trying to figure out, and the guy's like, why didn't you kill him then? He's like, I didn't want to kill him, first of all. I wanted to, but I wanted to, it was like he was looking for some type of reason to not do it. And not just that, I didn't want to kill him because it would have looked like a disgruntled employee was getting mad, not the message I want to give. But he was trying to better understand this person, this Mark, if you will. And Sean Scott gives such a great performance. The girl, Kirsty Averton, who's played Eileen Palmer, gives a great performance. And I don't want to focus too much on the British characters because it's not their movie. Right. But I liked how the filmmakers for this film, let me give them some credit. Shoojit Sircar, who directed it, and then you got Shubhendu Bhattacharya and Ritesh Shah, who did the screenplay. They gave us a complete story. They gave us a great array of actors and performers in this film. And it helped. Whenever you have everyone on their A game, it always elevates the film and the view and the film watching experience.
Yeah, I think what this film was also honest, okay? Because it showed like, okay, the massacre happened, right? But you see where what led up to this massacre, and then once it happened, you saw that the English government and those higher ups were like, what just like, you know, they know it was wrong, and it wasn't like this was a decision by the prime minister or, you know, the queen or whatever, you know what I mean? This was, you know, a decision basically between a few people, and it's one of those things that shows you how, unfortunately, sometimes a country, you know, commits atrocities by just a few people's decision, a few powerful people here and there, and now the country as a whole is blamed for this. But it also showed the other side. It shows the humanity of the English freedom fighters that also were trying to, or protesters, I think they were leftists, they were calling them, or Marxists, I can't remember what term they used, that were supporting him and supporting some of the protests. It also talks about the political nature of how at the same time, this was at the same time of World War II, so they felt like, you know, we cannot lose India at this point, right? Because we're in the middle.
We're gonna need them.
We're gonna need them. We got to fight the Nazis, right? So many different aspects that came into this. On the IRA, I like the story of the IRA and how the IRA, people forget, you know, which IRA is still around to this day. Okay, the IRA was also under English subjugation and for many years, right? Ireland was, and you've got the terrorists out of there, but in their eyes, they're also freedom fighters because they just want to not be ruled, basically. And man, the storytellers show how sometimes politics and what is so different. Where, okay, we committed this, now we got to try to cover it up. We got to try to justify or whatever. They knew they were wrong. They knew this guy was wrong. As a matter of fact, didn't he lose his commission? The general lost his commission because of it. They said he was wrong or something like that. Because afterwards, I cannot remember something about that. Because they had the hearing.
UK has never apologized for the event, but in 2019, they admitted that they regret it. That's as far as I can find about their reaction to the massacre, at least.
Right. So it's one of those situations, man, where it shows you how things can go astray, Nick. And again, I love the storytelling because it shows how things aren't always so black and white, man. Things aren't always so simple. And yes, this guy, you know, people are going to say, I like what he said. I don't hate you. And you already brought this line up earlier. I don't hate you because you're in your country doing your job. I don't hate all English people. English people helped me or whatever. I hate people that come to our country and try to subjugate us and take away our rights and our freedoms, right? Wouldn't you? And he kind of posed that question. And even that guy who was in charge of his church, torture, to your point, starts seeing his point and starts understanding what this guy went through. And he even started changing the hearts and minds, I think, of some of the British people that were in charge of his punishment. Like, oh, man, this guy was right. What happened was an atrocity. Well, you know what I mean? What happened was wrong. And again, great acting performances all around. I think, to me, maybe because, Nick, and the only thing I could think of is because some of those scenes are so hard to watch because they're so drawn out. And I get it. That's what the filmmakers want. They want you to feel uncomfortable. But I'm telling you, bro, if you go back and check the runtime, they spent 20 to 30 minutes
it was a long time
on that scene. And
I was feeling it. The last 10 minutes, I was feeling it, but you needed it because it wasn't just that you saw this and, oh, that's unfortunate. He tried to help everyone. I mean, at first I thought he was getting more people, but they were looking for their own people. He was basically, and who knows if that's historically accurate, that he was the only guy trying to find other people that weren't his family members. Right. But he goes and gets that cart. He puts them on there. He's trying to wrap things up. And that scene, Is Anyone Alive, was very, very powerful. The whole movie was very, very powerful. It was very unique, the pacing, the way that they edited this together. Because at first I'm like, he shot him the first 30 minutes? That's interesting. Right. And then they go back and they do the torture. And I'm just like, I'm not sure about this pacing. But when the whole thing's over and you get to where he finally opens up, that's such a beautiful... The pacing was genius at the end of it. When he opens up to, the lieutenant captain, whatever his name was, the investigator guy, when he opens up to him about why he had this decision to make with O'Dwyer, and he goes into that whole story, and he's super excited with the mute girl, right, that he's either fallen in love with or she's his sister. I think it was a romantic thing. And she's like, I don't want to marry. He's like, you know what? I won't marry either. There are so many similarities between him and Bharat Singh from what we saw in that movie. He also went on a fast. I didn't know until I looked it up that his fast, Sardar Udham, was 42 days. In the movie, it made it seem like it was a few days before they force-fed him. And it was interesting how, and the investigator keeps going back, kind of asking, like, can we back off? Can we back off? No, we cannot back off. We cannot show weakness. We cannot have this guy come in. And I'm not going to make it about country versus country.
Right.
But it's interesting how when you are in charge, when you are in control, you make justifications to keep that control. But when someone else tries to take a little bit of personal control as that freedom fighter, it's a different situation. And there's so many thoughts here. It's interesting how constantly it was freedom fighter and not terrorist. And I'll give that to him, honestly, because my view of a terrorist is someone that just is just, I mean, they're obviously committed, right? But they're doing something out of hate. Right. He says, I don't hate you. He didn't even want to talk about it. He was ready to accept his punishment. Hang me right now. I don't care, but it's your country that I'm mad at. The whole court case, that was interesting. It seemed like the judge had the fix from the very beginning. We're just going to humiliate him. And Sardar Udham didn't even fall for it. He's like, no, I don't care, but you're a tyrant. Your country's being a tyrant. And you've got, I mean, there's so many thoughts. And I'm talking about the context of the film. The cinematography was fantastic. The music made it one extra step better than what it already was. It was hard to watch. It wasn't an easy place film, but it was a film, like you said, that was honest. It had amazing acting, amazing. It was absolutely fantastic. And to see the progression of his mind as what he seems like to me, someone that was a revolutionary, someone was a freedom fighter, someone that was committed to the cause, but also someone that was a regular person that went through the travesty of seeing all of his people killed needlessly. Mm-hmm. It's just a powerful story.
You know, I thought you were going to touch about something I wanted to mention. And what drives somebody to extremism, right? Or what drives somebody to that? And I don't know if it got lost in translation, because I know he was saying something, but again, sometimes with subtitles it's a little different, right?
Right.
But basically, I feel like that, like he died that day of the massacre, and he knew he was dead that day because he overslept, right? Is that because he wasn't there at the protest? Because he tells the guy, like, what happened? Why weren't you there? He said, I was late. I was very late. And then they come to it and he fell asleep, right? He overslept or something happened that he wasn't there with everybody else when they were protesting, and then the massacre occurred. So think about that. You're supposed to be somewhere and with everyone else. Now, by some fortune, by some fate, you're not there for whatever reason, and then your associates, your family, your friends, they all end up either getting shot, getting injured, dying. I think, how do you live with yourself the rest of you know what I mean? Like, I think that moment he had made the decision, I died this day, when he's carrying all those bodies, the pain, the anguish. And you know, there's been other historical things like that by some twist of fate. Somebody's just not at somewhere, and luckily they're not there. But then you have that survivor's guilt. Is that the term, Nick? Survivor's guilt. And I feel like he had that survivor's guilt where if it was just a revenge thing, I think he would have killed the guy at the house. But I think it was also survivor's guilt from the fact that he wasn't there at the protest when everybody else was, because he basically overslept. And like, it's just one of those things where I think even that was such a powerful motivation and reason for what he did. And it really added authenticity to this character.
Well, it's the personification of the statement people say all the time, you don't know what I've been through. Okay. What he went through that day. And I know what you're talking about. I know the exact scene you're talking about. I can't remember if he had said like, oh, I'm not going to go to that today, or I got work, or I'm tired, I'll see you later at it. He didn't know there was going to be a massacre happening that time that he wasn't there. His girlfriend was there, for crying out loud. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's a good point. That may be one of the reasons, but also what he went through, what he saw trying. I mean, it's just, that's why that scene is so important. And he goes back and back, and he shows humanity in a time, in a 24-hour period where humanity was not shown by other people. He shows ultimate humanity, but he's supposed to be this psychopath. He's supposed to be this crazy terrorist and all that kind of stuff. And that's where this film just really clicked and all. I'm gushing about this film. This was an amazing movie. I'm so glad that we were pushed to check it out, pushed to watch it upon our busy schedule. I'm so glad you were able to watch it so we can talk about it. I know there's so much that we're missing, but I just want to have no one have doubt. that so many aspects of this movie was so great for me to watch as art, but not great for me to watch like, oh, this is fan. I love people seeing die. Let me see. No, this was art in its truest form as film. And I'm not a huge, artsy guy when it comes to film, but this was undeniable. I'm ready to give it a grade. Easily, no problem. A+ for me. This is one of the best films, Indian films I've seen in a long time, especially current films. And this was an Amazon Prime film. It was supposed to go out in theater, but of course, like everything else, pandemic stopped that. But as an Amazon Prime film, this was a real treat to watch.
Oh, again, he gave an Oscar-worthy performance, and I think that this is going to be one of those films that, because of the controversy, more and more people will come to it and realize the art. But for sure, bro, it's an A+. The story's amazing. The cinematography is amazing. The acting. Go back and watch the pain, how this guy conveys it with his eyes, guys. How he conveys
so many
it.
Scenes.
Oh, man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And again, that shot stays with me. Because most of the time, even when Bhagat Singh, remember they show when Bhagat Singh gets hanged or whatever, it's like sorrow and people are crying or whatever. Like, no, for him, that was like, I'm finally free because I'm from under this tyranny. I've accomplished my goal. You know what I mean? Like, it was a happy scene immediately. That was like such a powerful, you know what I mean, message by the director and by the filmmakers there. And I applaud them for it. I applaud them for being brave because they had to know that they were going to get some backlash from other movie critics. Again, it's hard to talk about, right? Especially, and here in America, we deal with the same thing, right? We got a lot of backlash. There was a movie that came out, which also I thought there were some Oscar-worthy performances there recently. Judas and the Black Messiah, right? If you haven't seen it, check it out, guys. Amazing movie, HBO Max. I can't forget the guy's name. Wow, I hate when this happens to me. I always get I can
never pronounce his name, but yeah, from Black Panther.
From Black Panther, he plays Chairman Fred, right? And they show how the FBI infiltrated him, blah 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 blah. How the Black Panthers were actually set up, how he was killed. It's hard to talk about, but if it's history, let's stop whitewashing it. Let's talk about it because this is how we learn about it. You know what I mean? And there was some controversy around the film because of that. But I am upset, Nick, that 14 films ahead of this got selected. That is just blasphemous to me, bro.
Well, I think the selectors said that part of it was because they felt like the film was lauding hate for England. That's not what this film's about. No. This film's about telling something that was, it's painful to talk about, but it happened. Yeah. It happened, and it was something that needs to be talked about. Just talking about his act. And what was your grade for this film?
Oh, A+. Absolutely. If I forgot to give it, got A+ for sure.
I assume. There's just so many scenes that I can nerd out. When he is force-fed, right? And after he gets that food, it's such a brilliant scene because you see all the soup stuff on the pillow next to him. And when they leave, they take the tube out. He's exhausted from not eating. He gets some food in his belly and he almost falls asleep. But the actor is about to fall off the bed and almost falls asleep, which to me is what would happen if you're so hungry and so deprived, even if it's forced, even the traumatic nature of someone forcing that down you. Your body's going to be a little, relieved because it has some food. And I just love the way he did that, the way he acted, the way that thing came out. When he was at, the court, that was amazing acting. When he was hanging out in the earlier days with there's just so many amazing actor performances when he's walking around the city as he's doing his thing. And one last thing I want to say is one thing I read was that people have the theory that he killed O'Dwyer because he was confused and thought that was General Dyer who committed it. And in this film, there's a scene where he's looking at the grave of Dyer and he's looking at it. That puts that theory to rest. I think it's kind of disrespectful to assume that this freedom fighter is going to get the wrong name and the wrong person because he's not, he even said in the movie, I'm an educated man. I think that scene where he looks at the grave kind of puts that theory to rest. Right. He knew who Michael O'Dwyer was. Right. He knew what his mission was. And it didn't mention here besides that grave, but Dyer had already died, obviously. No pun intended there. There's just so many things about this film, and I don't even know the history fully to fully understand it. If I knew the history even more, I'd be gushing about it even more.
No, for sure, man, for sure. And I think you just, that was a very powerful scene. And back to my point earlier, right? Soldiers follow orders or whatever, but there's politicians, there's other people in charge, other powerful people that make those decisions that aren't really in it. So soldiers are the one in it. And their decisions have dire consequences. No pun intended there when I said dire consequences. They have dire consequences.
Sure.
And we see that in this film, man. But man, Nick, I'm so glad that we got to review this. I'm glad that this is our first review in a long time. If you have not seen this film, guys, go and watch it, even though I know we spoiled a lot of it. Go and watch it. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to lie. That 30 minutes is a painful watch there, but it'll stay with you. And it will really make you guys understand what an artistic film this is.
Absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this. And check out some other reviews we have on the channel. We have quite a few of them. Until next time.
We know all things.